This morning, Fernando.
Yeah. Okay, firstly, good morning. My name is Fernando. This is nerve-wracking. I haven't done this in a while. But my message I'm going to bring is called Jesus Sees You in a Crowd. And I think so many times when a crowd, we don't necessarily believe that Jesus is there and he sees me and he sees the next person. Just really, how does he see us? But before that, oh, there we go. Which way to that point?
That runs forward.
Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go. A bit about Fernando. I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher at the King's School West End. I was teaching the high school, but now I'm teaching grade 6s. I won't say what subject, just know I teach there. And I serve at community ministries. I like to leave it at that, just that I serve at community ministries. It makes it easier, because you say yourself on the pastor, and then like, okay, it needs to be this way, he needs to speak in this way, and needs to quote King James in this way. And and I'm a husband in training. I put it that way because I'm African. There's lobola, and I'm still waiting for Pete's donation towards that. Be good. Okay. So when Pastor Paul asked me to share, he mentioned that we were busy just talking about parables, and I said, okay, brilliant. First one, the prodigal son. And he said, that one's already been taken. So I said, this might be difficult. So I went to a couple of ones, but the one that I stuck on is the story of the lost sheep. And the reason I say that is because so many times as a Christian family, what I want to say is we're a community of believers. But so many times as a community, we have a lack mentality to say, if Jesus heals the next person, why is he not healing me? If he does this for that person, why is he not doing it for me? And so many times we forget that we are a community, and as a community, that should mean something. Starts off there. By this time, a lot of men and women of questionable reputation were hanging around Jesus, listening intently. The Pharisees and religion scholars were not pleased, not at all pleased. They growled. He takes in sinners and eats meals with them. He treats them like old friends. Their grumbling triggered a story. Isn't it amazing that Jesus, immediately when people start complaining, he thinks of stories? For us, I think, if someone starts grumbling, I'm like, okay, I need to find that person, I need to tell them, I need to set them straight. But Jesus looks at a way to say, this is a ministry opportunity. How many times have we missed ministry opportunities because we want to get even and we want to settle the score? Just something for us to think about. I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but I'm saying as a community, how many times do we miss those ministry opportunities because we want to get even? So it starts off and he says the story. Suppose one of you had 100 sheep and lost one. Wouldn't you leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the lost one until you found it? When found, you can be sure you'd put it across your shoulders, rejoicing. And when you come home, call in all your friends and neighbors, saying, celebrate with me, I found my lost sheep. Count on it. There's more joy in heaven over one sinner's rescued life, over 99 good people in need of rescue. Sometimes that's very strange to say, Jesus would leave the bulk of everything that's there, the 99, to go and look for the one. And sometimes I think we don't see how it is unless you're the one that's lost. And then really does it make an impact upon our lives. Just something for you to think about. But as well, I think there's confidence in Jesus leaving the one because he trusts that the 99 will look after one another. But sometimes, that's where the lack mentality comes in. We focus so much on saying, Jesus has left us. We forget that we have one another. When I walked in this morning, that really spoke to me to say, becoming his community and impacting our community. Who do you see as your community? And Jesus says it to say, who's my neighbor? And he tells the story. But today, we still focus on Jesus and the 99. So, Pastor Paul told me we have 2 hours to preach. Is it not that service? Oh, okay, sorry. In Acts, we're told of the community of believers. And I love how it puts it in the Message translation. It says, everyone around was in awe. All those wonders and signs done through the apostles. And all the believers lived in a wonderful harmony, holding everything in common. They sold whatever they owned and pooled their resources so that each person's need was met. Can you imagine what that community would look like? if we would look after one another to a point where no one among us knew lack. I think sometimes the only thing that we have in common currently is our load shedding schedule. Where we can call and say, do you not have electricity as well? What's happening? But what community would it be like if people around us would look at our community and say, I want to be and have what those people have? If the faith that we hold so much and profess so much onto was a faith that people could look at it and say, I want to have what that community has. Without us having to share any words, having to quote any verses, just the way that we lived, the way that we conducted ourselves, the way that we looked after one another. If people could just see that and be ministered unto and say, I want to have what those people have. I think sometimes people look at the community that we have and say, I don't want what those people have. And I'm not saying I have it figured out, but I'm saying, what community would it be if people could look at our conduct, look at the way that we look after one another, and from that say, I want to be part of those people. They followed a daily discipline of worship in the temple, followed by meals at home, every meal a celebration, exuberant and joyful as they praised God. People in general liked what they saw. Every day their numbers grew as God added those who were saved. God adds to a community that looks after one another. We saw it in our communities when COVID was there in 2020, when there was the hard lockdown and people couldn't be able to go to work. People pulled together to say, how do we look after our communities? But now as things have eased down, we've sort of forgotten about the people that we'd formed bonds and relationships with. We needed that situation to see, who really is my neighbor? What is it that I have, and how can I share that with the next person? And I love how immediately after that the churches were filled, people would come in and say, I want to continue being part of this community. But we've gotten so much back into our systems that people don't see that which first drew them to us. What is it that we need to go back to? How do we build a community that looks after one another? A couple of things that I've noted. Christianity is not a lone faith. It's not something that you do alone sitting in your own little corner. Yes, there are times that you need to withdraw. But you need to have a community that is praying for you. You need to have a community that is speaking into your life. And we cannot afford to just care for one another on a Sunday. Life happens after we leave here. There's a saying that we say at church to say, as a community, we are useless to the people out there if we just stick in here. We need to take the gifts, the love that we've experienced, and use that to preach into people's lives. We need to take the gift and the hope that we so profess. If it is a hope that I believe in, surely I need to share it with the next person. And I can't afford to just do that on a Sunday. I need to speak into people's lives, call to say, how are you doing? How is work? What's happening in your life? How can I journey with you? What can I pray for you? Sometimes we leave all of those things and then we come on Sunday. And sometimes it's so easy to play church. So I know I can come here, sing properly, stand this way, raise my hands at the right time, sit at the right time, breathe at this stage, do this. After that, all is well. But after you leave here, you go back to your life. Do you believe that you have a community that you can call on to and say, I'm struggling with something. Can you walk with me? Can I come into your home? Sometimes that's the most difficult thing, hey? Inviting people into our homes, because then they see, hey, this person doesn't have it all figured out. Anyone who's visited me knows my fridge is my sacred place. No one goes close to my fridge. I'll pray for you. But my fridge, oh, yeah. That's where the Lord's blessing is. But those are the spaces that we need to allow people into. That which God has blessed us with, that gifting is what we need to be able to invite people into and share with them. We need to share more than just on a Sunday. I love preaching. It's an amazing place to be in, but you don't impact people from just being on the pulpit. You impact people by walking with them. You impact people by making sure that they know that they are cared for. And the 99 should be stronger together. The community of 99, we need to be stronger than the one person who knows that they've been out there. When Jesus leaves and he goes to look for those people. And sometimes you're the person who's going to leave to look after that one person who's deserted and out there. Sometimes they leave the 99 because they don't feel like they fit in. They're going through something. Life happens to us all. But the 99 need to be stronger together, because there I've got a brother who's praying for me. I've got someone who's looking after me. That one person who's out there is all alone. They've got no one to look after them. We need to instead encourage the person who's going out there to say, let us know if we need to come alongside you. But while you are out there looking for that person, we are here praying for one another, strengthening one another, making sure that all of us around here are looked after. Sometimes we just sit and we focus as a 99 and say, but why did he leave us? Why is he not focusing on me? What's happening? I've got a story to illustrate that. It's called The Risk of Faith. A woman who had suffered, before that. After Jesus crossed over by boat, a large crowd met him at the seaside. On the meeting place, one of the leaders named Jairus came. When he saw Jesus, he fell to his knees beside him as he begged, "My dear daughter is at death's door. Come and lay hands on her so that she will get well and live." Jesus went with him, and the whole crowd taking along, pushing and jostling him. So you can imagine to say, there's so many people following Jesus to say, what is going to happen? There's this leader that's here to see him, and he's got a high standing. Jesus, within all of this, doesn't ask any questions. Just comes, and the crowd follows him. And then we get to a woman who had suffered a condition of hemorrhaging for 12 years. A long succession of physicians had treated her badly, taking all her money and leaving her worse off than before. Had heard about Jesus. She slipped in from behind and touched his robe. She was thinking to herself, if I can put a finger on his robe, I can get well. The moment she did it, the flow of blood dried up. She could feel the change and knew her plague was over and done with. Can you imagine the amount of faith that this woman needed? Because she has been suffering for 12 years. Everyone in the community probably knew about this woman. She was probably an outcast. She was the one person who was out there. No one wanted to do anything with her. She had been to every doctor, every specialist. And when she heard about this person called Jesus, she had so much faith to say, if I can just put a finger on his robe, then I'll be healed. She took that risk of faith, of putting herself out there, going through all of the embarrassment that people would probably see and say, hey, there's this woman here who's unclean. I love how it doesn't just end there. She touches the robe of Jesus and she's healed. But something else happens after that. At the same moment, Jesus felt energy discharging from him. He turned around to the crowd and asked, who touched my robe? Can you imagine at that moment now you think that you're healed, everything is fine and sorted, and then Jesus turns around and he's like, hey, someone touched my robe. Can you imagine how the disciples felt? Because they're like, Jesus, like you can see, you can hardly even walk straight. People are pushing you. What's happening? I love how Jesus continues after that. Now I've lost my placing here. 30. Oh no, okay, let me continue. But Jesus tells them, they tell Jesus to say, sarcastically they even say, Jesus, can't you see that way in a crowd? It could have been anyone that has touched you. And then the woman slips her hand up and he says, I touched you. And he says, go and live. But then remember that yes, there's a miracle that just happened, but Jairus came there to ask for Jesus to go and see his daughter. In between all of this, there's a crowd there. This man has come and called for Jesus to go and follow him. But Jesus still stops to ask, who touched me? The healing has happened, the miracle has happened. I can imagine Jairus probably being there and be like, Jesus, my daughter's at death's door. I understand that there's this woman here, but my daughter is at death's door. Can you just finish up? Let's go. While he was still talking, some people came from the leader's house and told him, your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore? Jesus overheard what they were talking about and said to the leader, don't listen to them. Just trust me. I love those words. Because sometimes when we're in a crowd, it's so easy to listen to what the crowd is saying. But you know what Jesus has said to you. And you need to hold on to the promise of God. The people around you might be discouraged and they say, well, he stopped for that person. Surely he's no longer coming to you. But Jesus hears this and he says to them, don't listen to them. Just trust me. Can you imagine him hearing that his daughter is dead and then at the same time God tells him to say, don't listen to them. Just trust me. Which voice are you listening to when you're in a crowd and in a community? Are you listening to what everyone is saying? When they say it is done, there's nothing more that can be done. Leave the teacher. Let him sit with that woman there. Are you there listening to what God is saying to you? After he says, just trust me. Just trust on to what I've said. I'm on the way, I'm coming. Yes, they might have said this. I told you that I'm coming and bringing your healing. I'm bringing hope to the situation that people have told you that it is dead. There's nothing more that can be done. But don't listen to them. Just trust me. Yes, you see that someone else, their healing came before, but your healing is coming. Just trust me. You're in the midst of a crowd and it doesn't seem like things are going the way that they should be. But don't listen to them. Just trust me. Might seem like it's getting worse and everything is not lining up. But don't listen to them. Just trust me. These are other leaders, other people that you had journeyed with. So many times you journey with people and sometimes they lose the hope. But just trust what God has said to you. And he continues to go there and he calls his closest friends. He calls Jairus and he says, let's go to the room that your daughter is at. The crowd is left outside. Because it doesn't matter who you're with. As long as Jesus is in the room, healing comes. As long as Jesus is in the room, the situation changes. I love that he heals the daughter and tells her, wake up. But can you imagine the people that are outside? Here they are sitting, and then they hear the small footsteps coming off the bed. Can you imagine what's going through their mind? Because they've said, oh, well, it's gone. Maybe Jesus is there to console him and say, we'll see what happens. He gets there. He says, daughter, wake up. The daughter wakes up. Jairus has heard that the daughter is long gone. Can you imagine that's the different things that are there? The people that Jesus brings into the room, what they think? Because it says that they were his closest friends. He calls his closest friends only. Who's in your circle that can hold your head up when there's suffering and when you're in the storm? Who are you surrounding yourself with that is able to hold your hand up and say, the situation might be like this, but Jesus is coming? What has Jesus said to you? What do you need to hold on to? The daughter walks up. Thank you. I'll take it. And that happens. The daughter wakes up and he tells her to say, I feed her. How about Jesus, when he wakes people up, he always says to them, please feed this person. Isn't that amazing? Anyways, and then that happens and then the daughter comes up. What do the people who told Jairus to say, your daughter's gone, don't disrupt the teacher, what do they say after this? Jesus doesn't say anything to them because without saying anything, because of the action, everything has been said. Sometimes we focus so much on our words and we say, we want our words to be right. But our actions are the ones that really bring people to Jesus Christ. What do our actions say? When we're in a crowd, are we the one that's discouraging someone? Are we the one that's there holding their hands up? Are we the one that's causing someone to not go to Jesus? Or are we the ones that are saying, what has God told you? What has He said to you? Trust in that. Trust in that. And we need to get rid of the mentality to say, if Jesus is doing it for someone, it's not going to happen for me. Because at that point, Jairus could have chosen to say, well, Lord, you've heard what they said. Baba, you can be on your way. But he still holds on to what God has told him. And he still invites him into his house. Where do you need to invite Jesus in your life? What spaces do you need life in that Jesus needs to come? What spaces have people told you to say, there's no more life, there's nothing that can happen? But Jesus is saying, invite me into that room, into that place, and I'll bring life. What's that space for you? We need to be a community that lifts one another up. Jesus sees you in a crowd. Didn't need to stop for that woman. Could have continued, and he said, no, the healing has come, I'm focused on that one person, but Jesus sees you in a crowd. Jesus sees you in a crowd, and because of that, he can see you if you're not in that community and not in that crowd, because he sees you. He knows you before you were formed in your mother's womb. He knows the amount of hairs on your head. Can you imagine what that is like? I don't even know how many hairs are there on my head, but he knows each and every one of them. Doesn't just know your name, but he knows, oh, this one is here. Well, you're busy there getting your hair ready and one falls off. Jesus knows that one. For each and every one of us, he knows. And when Jesus is on his way to you, just hold on to his promises. Just hold on. Keep holding on to his promises. Situation might not change instantly, but if you know that Jesus is coming and he said he will do it for you, he surely will do it for you. What promises has God made to you that you've let go of because the crowd has told you it'll never happen for you? Jesus spoke to you, gave the promise to you. You need to hold on to that. You need to trust in him and trust that he said he will do it, he surely will do it. I'm going to go back to the scriptures that I started with. At the time, a lot of men and women of questionable reputation were hanging around Jesus. It's important the people that we surround ourselves with. It's important the people that we surround ourselves with. John 5, it tells us about a man who was by the well. He was standing beside a pool there, which people could go into and get healing. The man had been there for 38 years. Tells us that an angel would come and stir up the well, and people would come in there and get healing. For 38 years. Can you imagine that lifespan? 38 years that man had been there. People had come and gone. Crowds of people had come and gone. And none of them had thought to themselves to say, this man has been here. Let us get him in that well. People had come and gone. People had gone there, gotten healing, probably gone and tell other people to say, you've got this disease, go, I know of this place that's there. And they'd come there and they'd seen this man still there, crippled, not being able to do anything. But none of them had taken time to say, let's get this man into the well. But Jesus comes there. He asks this man to say, do you want healing? This man tells him to say, yes, I've been here for 38 years. People have come and gone. Every time the angel comes and he stirs this well, there's always someone who comes in before me. I've been waiting here for 38 years. No one has taken time to see me and be able to take me to the pool, to the well, so that I can get my healing. As a community, we must be able to see the next person. We can't afford to just see suffering and leave it that way. We need to be a community that builds one another up, that speaks into people's lives, that is able to pick people up when we see that they are struggling. We cannot afford to see suffering and leave it that way. We are a community that knows love. We need to make sure that other people that we see, that we engage with, know of this love. This man had been there for 38 years. You cannot tell me that there had not been a Christian in 38 years that had been there for healing and seen this man and not seen this man, and to himself they had not thought, this man, how can I put this man before myself so that he gets the healing that he needs? 38 years. We've had the COVID pandemic for 3 years and it feels like it's been for so long. But this man had been there for 38 years. Says, people always come, they see me, and they move past. Who are we seeing but not impacting? Who can we draw into our community? Jesus tells them to say, be healed, pick up your mat, go. And this man is healed. Didn't even need to go into the well. Because so many times we see how Jesus heals the next person and we want that for ourselves, but Jesus meets us at our place of need. As a community, we need to be able to speak into one another. And part of people speaking into our lives is we need to be able to go and be vulnerable with people. Yes, I can pray for you, but it's better if you tell me this is my area of need and I pray specifically into that. And when I can help, I do just that. That man who had been there for 38 years didn't necessarily need prayer. He needed someone who could see him and take him into the pool so that he can be able to walk. There's another story in John 5, in Mark 5, where it tells us about the 3 friends who they go and they hear that Jesus is there, and they take their friend to that place and they say, yes, it's crowded here. There's no way that we can get this man in. At that point, they could have said, oh well, you see, we've brought you here, nothing can happen. But they believed so much that they climbed on a person's roof. Can you imagine if someone just opened and we could hear the ceiling breaking apart in here? They took that step to say, for our friend, for this person who is in our community, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that they get to Jesus. What are you willing to do for the person that is in your crowd, is in your community, to get to Jesus? Are you willing to go out there and put yourself at risk? Are you willing to carry the person to where Jesus is? They break apart the roof and then they lower him down. I'm like, yo, can you imagine what the owner of the house must have said? Say, oh, Jesus, you know how much a ceiling is? Maybe they had offering after and then they said, for the ceiling. But Jesus says, because of your friends, you have been healed. Because of the faith of your friends, you have been healed. Because of the people around you, you have been healed. Who are you surrounding yourself with that can take you to where Jesus is so that you can get your healing? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who is in your crowd? Who is in your community? Who is your 99 people that are around you? Who's your 12 disciples, people that you're walking with? That see you, and not just see you, but see the suffering that is happening in your life and take you to Jesus. It's easy to go to Jesus when everything is going all right, because then we can say, yes, Lord, amen. But if words fail you, who is there to pray for you? Who's there to take you to where Jesus is? Who's there to raise your hands up and say, let's go? We lost a couple of people during COVID because they just felt disconnected from church. They're saying, it doesn't feel the same way now, even if I go back. I don't feel like this is for me. But we've taken steps to say, each one of us can journey with someone. Each one of us can journey with someone until they feel they can come back to the community. Because sometimes, we as the community, we're the ones that keep people away. Pastor Paul shared about the prodigal son, and there's a lot of things to take from that. I'm not going to go into that necessarily, but the one thing that struck out for me is how the older brother responds when he sees that the feast has been thrown for the younger brother. He says, I've been here serving you the whole time, and you've not even given me one animal just to celebrate with my friends. Sometimes we're like that. When someone comes back into the crowd, comes back into the church, we're like, but that person, we know what happened in that person's life. How can they be here? But we need to be a community that lifts one another up. And as a community, that only happens if the 99 don't feel cared for. Because if I'm in the community and I feel cared for, when my brother comes back, when my sister comes back, I'm able to embrace them and celebrate with them. But if we focus so much on that brother is gone, he's gone, everything's been given unto him, and we just sit complaining around that, and we have a pity party to say, yeah, but we're just sitting here. Why has he gone and left us? We cannot be able to be the ones that welcome him back. But if we can sit, pray for one another, share, and have everything in common, then surely when Jesus comes back, when the lost sheep comes back, we can be able to embrace that sheep. We say, we have been praying for you. We're so happy that you're back. In the time that you have not been here, we have missed you. We're going to throw a party for you because you belong with us. You are part of us. That is a community that we need. A community that sees when the sheep is missing. A community of faith that is able to do whatever it takes to make sure that each and every one of us is being well taken care of. Each and every one of us is seen, not just on a Sunday, but each and every day. We need to be a community that when people look at us, they're able to say, I want what those people have. Even without saying words, in our conduct, in the way that we see one another, in the way that we love one another, the way that we walk and journey with one another. I need to be able to see that and say, I want what those people have. I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but I'm part of a community that is able to be there and raise my hand. Part of a community that sees when I'm not well and say, what is happening in your life? A community that speaks into my life to say, we see this for you. We need to be that community that sees one another. We need to see one another, to hear from one another. If you don't see someone here for 2-3 weeks, call. Say, hey, I haven't seen you. Are you well? Is everything all right? Let's go grab a coffee, as Pete would say. And when you say coffee, I'm learning that hot chocolate is not part of coffee. But we love one another through it all. We need to be a community that sees and is able to take the step to make sure that the lost sheep can come back. And when one has gone out to look for the lost sheep, the 99 that remain look after one another, because we are the community. A community, become a community that is his community, and we impact our community.